Hey everyone. I just want to talk about I'm coming back from a 7-day trip, language immersion trip to Quebec. It's my second 1 week trip, and the other one was just 5 days. I went over Christmas, which was really fun, and I spoke about that on this my single mom fun and blog. Um, oh gosh, I should probably link to that. Anyways, I'll just go back and update the link if you want to subscribe to that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Quebec is an amazing place for Americans to learn French, and I literally can't believe how stupid. Like I sort of can. I sort of have a thing for like seeing things that others can't because I'm not within the system. So I was just looking at. I'm just like, okay, let's go to France, Quebec to learn French. And I have to say, after this is my second trip and I study on my own, I went from like basic conversation to like I just literally at the airport had a full blown 2 hour conversation with the French woman who was passing through on Air Canada on her way to New Orleans. She was traveling by herself, which I do too. So we are just talking about our love of travel. And the funny thing is, people do not use Quebec. Like, why Quebec is the best? Let me go over it. First of all, um, uh, first of all, the reason I liked Quebec is because, I mean, it's French, so that's good. The vocabulary is different, but it's literally the same as if Americans versus British. Yeah, it's still the same language, but you have to, if I go to Britain, it'll take me a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 days to acculturate. And sometimes you'll have to ask a question, what does this mean? Because they use different vocabulary. But like American English and British English is still English. It still has the same structure and grammar. And even though if you go to one place, you might have to ask questions about certain vocabulary because you use a different vocabulary, that's okay. Like you just do it. So Quebec is just like that. So the Quebecois accent I actually like more because I'm American. If you go and listen to the two accents, French accent and Quebecois accent, like I swear as an American, you're going to like the Quebecois accent for French better because it's just warmer and it's like warm and open. It feels like your friend talking to you, where the French one's been very formal, very strict. Like the strictness of their social code is embedded in their language and how they pronounce it. So like just as an American, I feel like Quebec is like a beautiful mixture of North American friendliness and laissez-faire attitude versus the French like deeply entrenched love of themselves and aspiring higher within themselves and being a little closed off, but excelling within them being closed off. But one thing that's good is that, yeah, like you're going to learn French. And so what I've noticed about the accent, the reason they say you shouldn't do it, I spoke to two women who are from France who lived in Quebec City. Well, one was the lady in the airport, and I spoke to another who was the receptionist at the hotel, so I'd have conversations with her. And I had to get used to the French accent. I find just like British accent, I feel they talk a little faster, more clips, but they swallow their words a little bit. It's just like when I watch Netflix and I watch an English film, I gotta put subtitles on because I understand what they're saying, but the way they talk, it's just faster. Like we pronounce and articulate more. We don't swallow our words. Like we're out there, just like our personalities, American personality. Like we're out there. So I did have to. It took like maybe 30 minutes, but then you do get used to the accent. It's just a different accent. But I was able to have a 2 hour airport conversation um, with a woman like from France, right? Um, Even though she has a different accent. So that whole thing, like you can't understand, like you don't want to learn it there because the accent's different. That's the silliest thing. Learn the language there, and when you visit France, it'll take you a moment, but you'll have to acculturate yourself to a different French accent. But at least you'll know the language. You don't have to go to France cold. You can go to Quebec. The other reason I think it's the best for Americans is that it's so easy to get cheap plane tickets. I met another woman. So I went to the ceramic cafe where you get figurines and then you glaze them and paint them. And that's what you do. It's like a nice way to spend 3 hours in the afternoon to eat cakes and desserts. It's just like really cool. I met a woman there, and she was interesting. She lived in a small town. She was like an athlete, and she was there for alpine athlete, and her kids are like 11 and 10, and they're like in athletic competitions for alpine skiing. I was like, oh, okay. And then the whole family was a whole, and then the daughter's like a jumper with horses. Like it's just very high class. But I was talking to her about was I talking about? The prices are just so great here. Like going to Quebec is just so easy. We were talking about she goes to Florida to visit her dad, and she's like, I can do for $99 round trip. I'm like, it is cheaper for me to fly out of DC or Chicago or whatever for like less money than it takes me to go visit my family on the West Coast in Las Vegas. I can't even get anything for less than $450, and that's months in advance. It is literally cheaper for you to fly to Quebec or Montreal or one part in there than see it. And I looked it up. Like Quebec is it like 3 times the size of California? They have whale watching, beautiful forests, fjords, right? Those beautiful fjords that you only see in Norway. They have northern lights, polar bears. I'm like in love with Quebec because I didn't know it was this cool and I didn't know it was this cheap to get to. So yeah, not only is it super cheap, but the dollar was 2 to 1. Now it's like 30, like it's 0.1, 1 Canadian dollars, like 0.7. So it's like I basically it's a 30% discount. Why wouldn't you go? So Quebec and Canada is also a 30% discount. So it was sort of nice, like a $90 tab was 60, or a $16 tab is 12, right? That was really, really nice. And because they're first world. So it's affordable. If you go in the winter, which is fine, we just wear our cuffs and our furs and we call it a day. I love my fur pieces. FYI, I buy all my fur pieces from an online website called Fur Hat World, which it's out of Ottawa. So I buy my furs from Canada anyways. But like amazing, you guys will love it if you go. It's beautiful. All these little Russian girls with their Russian hats and furs. So I just buy like 1 or 2 pieces a year. I've been doing that for 10 years. So I have like a huge collection of furs, rabbit fur, fox fur. I don't like mink really because it's scratchy. But fox fur is like, forget that whole mink stuff. Fox fur is what you want. Rabbit fur is if you can't afford the fox fur because it'll be 3 times as expensive, you get the rabbit. Okay, enough of that. So, yes, and 3, Canadian people aren't like French people. From what I've been hearing and learning, it is very hard to make friends with French people. The only ones you can make friends with are the ones that are like travelers, but like the regular people, like they don't know you. They're not trying to make friends with foreigners. Expats say all the time, the only friends they can make are other expats. They're not trying to meet people. Well, the thing about Quebec, I've already met 3 families, right? One lives there. We're going to do a language exchange with this beautiful woman from Martinique, black woman. She's absolutely a model. Just so beautiful. We're doing a language exchange. She just texted me, and I'm going to text her when I'm done driving. Another family, a black family from Montreal. I met the other lady who was from the Sinuit Peak, which is like a small town. She's the Alpine competitor. Not only can you learn your French, but like these are friendly people. They have an American level of warmness. Like they're not necessarily going to come up to you, but if you approach them with like an open heart, like they're just like Americans in that way. Like if you approach them nicely, generally they're going to open up and accept, and you can exchange information and go from there. So she actually had converted a bus. I converted a van. So we just had a lot in common. She was real estate. I was in real estate investing. She was in real estate investing. We were talking about how we started at the bottom. So yeah, so unlike friends, you actually can meet people and establish a network that literally the next time you come, you will call and meet up, right? Which is great because the family we met at the aquarium, we were talking back and forth. We went out to eat. And when I go to Montreal, it's great because now if I take Layla for another language immersion trip, I have a friend. But like I said, in French, you don't necessarily get that level of vibe play because they're sort of closed off spirits. And so that's another reason, because you'll actually be able to make friends and speak French. And like I said, I met 2 people from France who were there. So French people are in Quebec. I want to talk about that as well. But you get the North American friendliness, so you can learn the French and enjoy meeting people who have I think a certain elevated class. I think the French culture sort of demands an elevated sense of class and taste. It's just different, it's a little bit more class oriented. I don't know, it's just a little bit more classy than the rest, and they pride themselves on that. But it's not as formal as in France. So you can actually make French people who are friends and connect and meet with them again. Whereas in France, that's not necessarily the case. It's like, hi, bye, we're not trying to meet you. Or I know you're American, but we don't care. We just do our own thing. So that's another great reason how friendly Canadians are, since they are North American. They're friendly like Americans are if you approach them with the right heart. In addition to it's affordable, so it's 1 to 3. And in addition, you get to learn the language, and they're very, very accommodating. So as soon as I said, so I would speak to them in French, and then they go, you want me to speak English? I mean, because, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but, I can get it done. And I was like, no, je suis ici pour la pratique, s'il vous plaît. As soon as I said that, they're like, okay, j'écoute. That means I'll listen. All right. And they would sit back and be like, okay, I'll listen. And then they would slow down and they'd talk. They'd help me round things out. And I think people in France might be like that. I honestly think they'll probably help too as long as you're trying. But I don't know. There's just something. There's just like a level of warmth, American to Canadian, that we have that you're just not gonna get. Like I don't get warmth from when I go to British or meet with my UK people. Like there's not warmth. They're a little standoffish. You're not gonna get that warmth from France, but you can actually get that North American friendliness and warmth from Quebecois. And I think that's amazing to be able to develop, like, you know, even if it's light travel friendships, you can't necessarily get that other places. So I literally have a language exchange partner and someone else I can call and ask her questions about, you know, the woman with the competitive, she called her grandma, so I'll just text her to get the answer on like, because I was like, where are the mom groups? Because I'm here and I don't want to keep paying for all these attractions, but mom groups, I don't care where you are in the world, they know every free event for the kid every day of the week. And she was like, well, my mom works with daycare, so she'll know. So I'll get back to her to find that out. So that's what we were talking about. But it's just really cool that you can develop that. And, you know, so that's why Quebec, because Americans, we're friendly people. Like, yeah, okay, the food is good, but we like meeting people. We like exchanging ideas. We like asking about their culture and telling them about ours. And you just necessarily, from what I've seen when I went over there, it's just not easy necessarily to get that in France because they're a closed nature, right? They're very class conscious, and Americans aren't. So when it's class consciousness, like you have to be introduced to people. And so, like, that is a benefit for an American to learn in Quebec. I went from, halting French. This is my second 1 week trip, immersion. I forced myself to talk, and I forced Layla to talk, so she had to say bonjour. And she got really, and I'll tell you about her experiences after 1 week, right? So for me, I went from halting to full-on conversations, just because acculturation, like bonjour, and trying, and how do I say this, and then trying, and then speaking with what they just told me, and adding it to what I knew, and then them saying something that I forgot, but triggered it. Oh, like I did learn that. Yeah, j'ai dû. All right, oui. So j'ai dû, j'ai dû aller à l'école et pour être blah, blah. And so it was just really cool that, like, to learn it. It was also cool to learn about the French people. And this is what's going on with the French people. French people are moving to Quebec. Oh, I did like the poutine. The poutine was great. The poutine is go-to. I have to say, I don't really like French food. I don't know. I'm trying to lose weight. That stuff was not conducive. Yeah, I did try the poutine. It was good. But the French people move into Quebec. And so it's funny. I talked to 2 French women who lived there. And they were like, I actually prefer it here. Like, where I'm from, it's just very close. There's a lot of pressure to just always do this, always be this, to have your body like this, to look like this. And they're like, it's too much. It's expensive. People aren't as friendly here. I love how friendly they are here in the States, right? I love Quebec too. Yeah, and that, like you guys, I'm going to tell you American trait. We are some friendly people in the world. We are so open to people and exchange ideas. If you go to the UK, they're not trying to meet you because you're American, and it's not because I'm black. Okay, I want to talk about that, Moroccans. Those hate and jealous people, but we'll talk about that later. And I said what I said, okay, because that's where I got the most mess from, right? Not white folks this time. We'll go into that. But they don't want to meet you. Or if you go to like the UK, right, or France, yeah, they'll be polite as a tourist, but they're not trying to meet you. And if you don't know, listen, that's what everyone will say. It's hard to make friends. If they don't know you, they don't know you. If you're not in their group, you're not in their group, okay? So that is generally how it is. Let me keep going on that one. So they were like, I actually love it here because I can just relax. I can just be myself. I don't have to worry about my body image or this, or if I'm doing this right. And they were like, yeah, and they just liked how friendly it was, and it's easier to live here than, I don't know how easy it is to live over there in France, but it was interesting that she liked living here, and the lady at the airport was like, I actually don't. I was like, do you love your country? She was like, I actually don't like living there. That's why I travel a lot, to get out. And she just says the people there are just very closed spirit, sometimes closed-minded. You have to do things a certain way, and if you're outside the box, it's really hard to connect and live there. So I just thought that was very interesting about France, that you have quite a bit from what they told me. Quebec French people coming to Quebec to live because they can still speak the language, but they get a friendlier and easier, more amiable way of living, right? So like I stand so firmly being an American. I stand firmly in the fact that we are the friendliest people, and I was telling them that part of the reason America keeps being innovative and keep coming up with like the best, and we're always like leading that charge of something new and something great and something better, is because we welcome more than I think almost any other country foreigners. If you meet a foreign exchange student, they get treated so well, right? They get treated better than other Americans because we love, it's an opportunity to get like real on the ground information about how do you live, what's your advice, how do you think about that. Like Americans, we love foreigners, but that's why we're so great, I think, in so many ways, because we truly welcome you. Generally, I mean, of course, there's different levels, right? There's different levels, but we truly will welcome, like, especially if you're like, if there's, I mean, you can think of someone where they don't like it, where it's like if you're poor, no one likes, no one really welcomes poor people of anyone. But if you're like sort of just a normal stock person, you come over for visas for tourists, we really welcome it. We'll open our houses to you. We'll invite you to our house. We'll let you stay. We'll show you around. You don't even have to pay us. Because we love the idea that we can talk to you, we can ask you questions and learn about you. But from when I went to the UK, or from what I heard about France, no one's trying to ask you a question. Oh, you're American, so like you can't be interesting to them. You don't have ideas they want to hear because they're very closed. And so they're loving coming to, like that American thing that I'm just talking about, that's part of Canada. Now, they're not I think, as outgoing with it as we are in America, but like we truly welcome the exchange of ideas, because we'll take your ideas from somebody who's Mexican and someone who's Chinese, and we'll make a fusion. We'll make Mexican Chinese. Like we are so into taking the best from all of these foreign experiences and doing this. And so I stand proudly as an American. I don't care where I go. I'm like, no, like part of this is like our ingenuity is that we're super welcoming. You know what I mean? To people, we welcome ideas. We're gonna ask you questions. It doesn't mean that we don't need you. We just like hearing how you're doing it different in case there's some gem or nugget that teaches us a better way of like living our life that we can learn from. And I swear that's why we're different. That's why, they might say all they want about Americans, but they always wait on us to come up with an idea or an answer. Right? And we come up with ideas and answer because we're willing to let ideas go to the surface, not just ideas part of like a narrow construct or a narrow group of people that we've designated as the people to make the decision. So I was telling them like about that, and they would relate. And it's interesting, like in Quebecois, they get to go and they get to welcome that, like in their home country, they don't. So they were saying a lot of people are not that happy living there because it is so closed off, and it's sort of like survival of the fittest. So, so I'm an American who's like, oh, do you pretend to be, no, I love America. And if you want to, and here's the deal, I can back my stuff up. So I'm very, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I have insight because I've been studying this. So I don't mind discussing like why Trump was needed. If someone in Quebec was asking me about politics, and I was like, I'm liberal and conservative. It's not reasonable to just be one. And I said, the one thing I like about the States is that if you're super liberal, go live in a super liberal area. And then another thing about it is if you're super conservative, live in a conservative. There's 50 freaking states. And I'm like, instead of complaining, move to where you're aligned. That's it. You know what I mean? So we're too friendly. I'm okay with our friendly. Nah, keep some distance with these folks. Oh, I get you. The sound stage here too. Yeah, no, we're and so it's interesting discussing, because I can discuss this. I don't care if you're French or Quebec. They were like, they were talking about the gun shootings because, man, that's really on their mind. And I'm like, side note, that's a very touchy subject, because I remember when I went to France in 2008. I remember I was at a hostel and I met these two French kids. And they were like 19 and I was like 25, but whatever. We were at the hostel and we were talking. The first thing he talked about was like, you guys have guns, right? Like that's a big, big deal to them. And then they see the shootings and they're just like, cause that's, you have guns. Now there's perspective, right? Like, 288 shootings, 50 million students. That's, not like, it's not happening 1 in 3 days, right? But it does happen. But like the conversation can be had that like, and I was talking to her, like the interesting part is some of the safest places are where they have the most gun ownership, right? Because they know, like they know that, you don't want to mess with people there. But, it's interesting. So we were talking about that, and you know, so the thing is, it's like whenever someone like Americans are this, I'm like, listen, there are 50 states that are each like their own country. Some are liberal, some are conservative. Some are conservative and liberal in the South. Some are conservative in the South. Some are liberal in the South. And each state has its own cities. Some cities are liberal. So my pushback is always to be like, relax. There's 330 million people. Trust, I don't get along with all of them, nor should I, because I'm not aligned with all of them. But I can find my conservative, black, atheist, blah, 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 within that 333 million. It's just really big. So my pushback is when they try to just blanket it. It's just like there's all sorts of people. There's people who complain. There's people who get things done. There's people who work for a living. There's people who are business owners. We're all different depending on what type of system that you're living in, right? Your paradigm. So that's my pushback. So I don't mind if they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, listen, live where you want. Like, people have choices. So it's just like interesting conversations that will always come up, but I don't mind discussing them because, you know, there's nuances to all of them. Not to get too controversial, but I guess I will. One that comes up with them a lot is the guns. And my answer to that is like, look, you know, it's very, very unfortunate and sad. It hurts my heart when it happens. But, you know, I own a gun. I own a firearm. You're not taking it. And the people who own it, we vote and we'll defend it, right? We're ready. Like, you're not doing it because just so that's not going to be the choice. However, there's other ways to protect people other than taking away gun rights, right? So I tell them, you know, there's reinforcing doors, there's reinforcing windows, there's reinforcing this, different security measures. It's not just don't allow anyone to have guns. It is, there's other ways to do it. And so there's, you know, so there's conversations I've learned that you're going to have as an American, but just sort of diffusing it like it's a really big country. We're not all the same. And then that there's other things that you can do. There's other solutions. Always pretty much sort of gets on an even keel where they're not just like, they're just so appalled. But whatever. So France, close, Quebecois, North American, very friendly, very open. And a lot of French people are moving to Quebec. That is funny. No one wants to talk about that, but you wouldn't know unless you've been visiting there twice and you've been studying and meeting people there and having conversations with the French people who live there, right? So, you know, like I have, and so like, and I'm going to tell you my personal experience. I absolutely adore the French Quebecois because it's, I tell you, so go to YouTube and put French accent, Quebecois accent, and I bet you're going to like the Quebecois one. Because it's nicer and warmer and it feels like you're their friend and it's just it's a different type of melody and it's not so structured. So that is why. So it's cheap, it's affordable, it's great, it has North American welcoming and friendliness. You can actually make friends there, unlike France. Really hard to break in if you didn't go to university with them. And whatnot. And Layla, she was good. So she's just seeing mommy start from halting to asking how do you say this, then using that in a sentence and building. So she went from like, I have her on Lingo Deer, which is an app. I like Lingo Deer. I'll put a affiliate link at the bottom. I like Lingo Deer because it has games and it keeps it interactive. And on the next video I'll do, and it might be maybe on the ride home since I have time, because it's another 40 minutes until I get home. I like Lingo Deer because it has games interactive, plus they have the game portion. And she went from like sort of struggling with, after this week, every day that she was there, she was like 100%, 100%, 100%. So even though she's sort of speaking, not as much as me, but a little bit, but it's consistent and constant. So she had to say bonjour to everyone. She had to say je m'appelle. She had to say je suis en. So she kept doing it and doing it. She's listening to mom, going around it and listening. She has so much stuff in her vocabulary to be like, how do you say that? And she'd be able to read the sign in French, and I'd go, what do you think that means? And she'd be able to look and interpret and figure it out. So, hey Sabrina, I did. I'm just talking about how much I like Quebec for French. C'est vrai? Yeah, wait, it is true. So she went from that to like now with her language learning app, she's like, boom, boom, boom. So the activation, and what I thought was cool, she saw how we went from like, she's like, Mom, Dad, we've met people who speak English and French. And so I did that because I wanted her to see me working through it. I wanted her to see me not being perfect. I wanted her to see me trying, and then over a week getting better and better to a full conversation. I wanted her to see that, right? And I want her to see that so she knows it doesn't matter who you are, you have to put the effort and time, but over time it actually does get better. And I have to say, at her age, she picks up the accent and everything really, really well. So 6 is like perfect. If your kid is 6 or 7, like this is the time to do it. And I'll do another video on like if you don't know language learning, how you can do it, and how I would suggest you join in, because I think it's really motivating. So now when I tell her to do a language app, she has to do just one lesson plus one game. It's not a struggle. She does it. It's not like, oh, why do I have to do it? She saw me meet these people. She saw me get these numbers. She saw us make friends. And now she knows in Montreal, when we go visit again to speak French, we have these friends. Like, she saw, like, we met so many friends. My dad, she was telling him, who know French, right? Friends. It's cute when you're a kid. It's just easy to make friends. But I wanted her to see mom do it. So there is something to you learning it as well that just makes it really real to them. But I just saw her activation just go really high, and her desire to learn for the next time, is just really high as well. And so then you're going, like, I never really had to force it, but now we're going to force it to an inner desire to be able to talk to all those people and friends that mom was able to. Because she had met this one girl when we were at the amusement park who didn't speak any English. And so they were trying to speak and they couldn't. And I want that interaction because I want it to go from, oh, okay, to, okay, it's this theoretical thing, to like, no, next time I go, I want to be able to talk to these people my age that I could have been friends with, but I just couldn't speak. So I wanted all of that to be included. So I talked in front of her just to be like, even though it was painful, but whatever. Like, I mean, as a Black woman who might be doing this, who are listening, we have an edge. And our edge is because we live in this country and it's so jacked up in our situation we're born into. We're very used to being uncomfortable to get to a goal, right? We're very used to going against the fray. We're very used to doing things differently. We're very used to having to go outside of our comfort zone. There are some people who can never force themselves. We do not have a choice. If you want to do anything good as a Black woman born in our community, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. However, if you grow up being uncomfortable because you want to do this that no one else does in the Black community, but you learn to do it, what it gives you is when you're an adult, you can take risks and put yourselves out there in ways other people just do not have the fortitude to do. That means you're making, starting a business is easier, not easier, but like we're able to do it even if it's uncomfortable. Because like, what else have we been? If not, we're comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's just a part of life. That's not stopping it. But so with language learning, we have a leg up too, because like we don't mind speaking. I met a couple of Americans who were like, well, I want to practice, but they're so embarrassed and self-conscious, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't practice because they didn't want to sound stupid in front of their family members, right? They just didn't want to sound less than their best. But like I said, as Black women, we're used to being uncomfortable, and that is a superpower when it comes to obtaining things, especially with language, where you have to talk even if you're not that good. Right? You have to go through it. You have to put yourself in front of them at a not at your best position in order to get to the best position. That is a superpower that we have because of the messed up situation the community is, and like you having to learn that fortitude and being comfortable with being uncomfortable and being outside your comfort zone. Use that superpower to your advantage to do what other people can't do. So, so that's sort of my thoughts. I think Quebec is amazing. I think, honestly, I have all these trips to France, but I think I'm going to start taking these trips to Quebec, honestly. It's just, it's really nice. You know what I mean? So those are my reasons. Those are my experience. So one was 5 days, and this was 1 week. And I went from basic conversation to full conversations. We had to whip out Google Translate 2 times. And sometimes we converted to English. And she wasn't really good in English. I was better in French than she was in English. But full 2-hour conversation, we talked about, she was Buddhist, I'm psychic. We were talking about her traveling alone and I'm traveling alone, how you can't wait for your friends and not do it. And then we were talking about New Orleans, and I told her about my experiences in New Orleans. And I was talking about Quebec French, and she's like, yeah, it's fine. And like she was talking about her country, how she doesn't really like it. I mean, it was a full-on conversation, like an exchange, full-on conversation. So, what else? Yeah, so, I think Quebec for Americans is the best, but honestly, from the French who actually make it over there, it's the best for them too. So, don't be slipping on some hidden gems. Quebec is just like a nicer, more friendlier France. So really beautiful. So super enjoyed it. I'm very proud of my language skills. A week is just enough. So what I'd like to do is 4 1-week immersion trips. So I'm gonna go to France for immersion. So me and Layla have a trip to France in the summer, and that's gonna be good. But like I said, I did notice I had to become acculturated to the sounds because it is faster and they hold their words. Um, yeah, please do. Like I'm going multiple times a year because it's super cheap. We get $1, and they're just nicer people than French. They're nicer and welcoming to meet you and want to engage and meet than others. And I think as Americans, that's just what we like. We can go someplace like the UK that's austere and standoffish, but we, the Americans, the level of friendliness we have, we're always going to enjoy a place like Mexico, where regardless, you are invited to the party, right? Like, and in Quebec, I found you were invited to the party. Like, it was really, really that sort of energy. And I really, really loved it. Next time we're going to go to Montreal, but I'm trying to do 4 1-week immersion language trips. So I'm actually, I went to Fiverr and put myself down as like a travel planner. So if any of you guys want to do travel and it's for language, I do it in a way where it's not academic, but it's still very good, where you're forced, if for kids or an adult, where you find the language exchange partners, where you do things on the ground, not part of an academic thing, but like really natural with other people. You can find language exchanges. You can find things if you're passionate about, like I do karaoke wherever I go. So I found all the karaoke spots in Quebec City, which is sort of fun. You know, like I found them all. And so that's how I got natural conversation, but within a community that was welcoming and open, because we all love karaoke, right? So we're all talking about our songs, what we do, what songs they like from me, what songs we like from them, what are French songs, which is like a beautiful exchange, but with a community. So I think most people should do language immersion, not academically, but it should be based around like language exchanges with another person, but also it should be based around activities you like to do. So I'll put that down if you're interested, but I just think we need to start thinking about things in a new way of thinking about it. Yeah, as my daughter would remind me to say, if you like this, please go ahead and click the like button, please, right now. Hit subscribe if you want to know more. Please leave your comments below about, are you learning French? Do you want to learn French? And do you want to go to Quebec, or do you have any stories about Quebec or French that you want to share that pertains? But I am hands down standing 10 toes down that for Americans, Quebec is the best place to learn French. Not only do you get the vocabulary, but you get a warm, welcoming culture that's just more similar to ours than a more standoffish culture of France, right? Which is very closed, and they don't care that they're not welcoming to foreigners. They honestly don't care. And it's really hard to break into. We're friendly people, and it was just so much fun. So I hope you guys like this talk and that this is interesting. But yeah, so I'm going to keep writing about language learning, what I'm doing with Layla for language learning, how that's going with her, me trying to teach her and also teach myself. My rate is going a lot faster, but I'm an adult, and with her, we're going to start tutoring up again. I got a tutor on italki, but I'll talk about Layla's learning and what I've been doing so far and her progress in the next video, because I think that's important. Parents choose whatever language. It could be Spanish or French or German. I chose French very specifically and strategically because it's a class elevator, and it also gives you access. If she can, and I'll talk about this in the next one, but if she speaks French, it gives her access to very low-cost areas. Because the French language is so difficult, it's actually lower price than other places would be, because people aren't flooding the market because the language is so hard and they're so closed off. But it actually gives you a really huge economic. It's a high price to pay to learn it, but it's a low price once you get there because the price of everything goes down. And that is something people aren't thinking about. So I want to talk about Layla's learning and why I chose it in the next video. Stay tuned. It's really, I think, just revolutionary in some ways, because I'm just not competing with these American kids, right? I'm building my kid up to compete internationally. And her being American is an asset. Because when we integrate, it's a whole other level, because people are where we bring that spark and ingenuity. So I'm just really setting my child up for like being able to really be flawlessly useful, wherever she wants to go. Maybe she wants to go work in Quebec. Maybe she, instead of French, she's like, yeah, Mom, I want to go live in Quebec. Well, she has an edge knowing both languages, like a lot of the people there do, but there were people there in Quebec who did not speak English, right? And so, I was telling her, if you're a company, would you like to hire two people? One speaks English, one speaks French, or do you want to hire the one person who knows them both? She's like, one person knows them both, and that's why it's valuable. And it still is valuable because not everyone knows it. So, yeah. Oh, and I did want to talk about a little bit. So, so Quebec in Canada is not as racist as the States. I can smell racism, and sometimes it's energetic, right? Sometimes it's, but I was like, nope, they get treated too crazy because I was black. So some of the things they do are, which are microaggressions. They'll put you in like some horrible seat or table, so no one sees you, or they think you won't tip, so they'll put you around the minorities. And, I'm sort of okay with that sometimes because when I see it, I was like, oh, you put me next to, okay, well, since you're assuming I'm not going to tip, no, I'm not. Okay, you just fulfilled your own prophecy. Will not tip well. And so there's different things that people can do microaggression, but I really didn't get that from Quebec, right? And I've been to Canada too. I really don't get that. It's not like the States. I mean, they're looking at you, but the whole deeply entrenched classism, your place is here and my place is here, and I'm going to flex and show it. It's just not there like that, but maybe I got to live there long. Like, it's there, but it's not, it's a different level. I find that their level is a level of like, I'll wait and see before I make judgment, but I won't assume that you're at this level that I'm here. So that's a difference, whereas a lot of people here are like, no, I'm here and you're here. At least they think in their mind, and they find out the wrong way, and then they get videotaped and lose their job because they're finding out you don't run everything the way you used to. So you really need to calm the F down, right? But I did, the only place I had like a testier exchange where a guy trying to like prove himself was like with 3 different Moroccan guys. And I was telling the French lady, like, out of everyone there, they were the issue because she was saying she was going to Morocco. And I was like, I didn't like Morocco. And it's funny enough, the only issues I had here with Moroccans who were trying to prove that they were better. And I'm just looking like, dude, bro, relax, okay? You're a taxi driver. Just relax. And it was interesting because I honestly, and this was the feeling I got like as a black woman, sort of like jealousy, where it's like, how come you come here as a black person and you integrate so easily with everyone else? That was the impression I got. I have a platform. I'm very diverse. I like people of all colors, but that doesn't mean I'm never going to not talk about racism experience, and you can't gaslight me. I can smell it, okay? I've sued for it and I've won, all right? So don't play me. I know what it is. And I just thought it was interesting because there's a lot of people in Quebec who are from Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco, North Africa, because they learned it in school. And it was just noticeable that the men, I don't know, like just wanted to prove that they were right, like the cashier or the 2 taxi drivers. I was like, why are you being like extra aggressive to tell me you know more? That like, what is this, right? And it wasn't with the other cultures. It's definitely Moroccan. I didn't meet a Tunisian Uber driver. I didn't experience it from them either. But Moroccans seem to be a lot. And I was like, I really picked up the fact that they were jealous that like I'm black and they're supposed to be at a higher place or stage or class than I am, and they aren't. And they're like, why do you just get to come and be able to talk to these Caucasian people and I can't? And I'm like, because I'm American and I know how to talk to different people. And we're very integrated, so like it's not a big deal to me. Like I've been integrated my whole life. Like if you go to college and you work a professional job, you're integrated. So I just thought it was so interesting that to me, and she was like, I was like, yeah, it's like jealousy or something because they think they should be higher just because I don't know, I'm black and they're not. So interestingly enough, any of the racial tension and this tension that I got came specifically from Moroccan men. The women seem to be sweet, and there's a lot, right? Because you get a lot of people from Haiti, Togo, but mostly North African who are in there. But that's where I got like the biggest like, you really need to stop hating right now. You really need to stop. That's where I got the most, and it just really smacked me of like, they're just like, I should be above you. And here's the deal. Karen, Chads, Moroccans, doesn't matter who you are. If you still think that just because you're a lighter skinner than me, color than me, that you should automatically at a higher class socioeconomic level, and that I should stay on the bottom, you guys are all going to keep getting a very, very rude awakening, especially as the nation is turning more and more minority, and you guys can't or don't want to have the babies that others can have. Okay? We're the ones making money. We're the ones buying shit. There's a reason Disney keep putting black Disney characters on. with black women on it. You want to know why? Because we actually go and spend money and do the sales. Because, you know, like, there's a reason why these companies who were historically doing okay but were a little bit racist aren't doing so well in Virginia Beach, because you're not the only option anymore. I have a store owner owned by Hispanic and a store owner owned by a black woman right down the street. So if you don't treat me with the right amount of respect, I can tell if you're just going through the process or you're really trying to curating my business. And with that, what I'm trying to say is that you guys think you're automatically on top with absolutely no justification based on skin color, but you have whole people with respect, prestige, status, wealth, education, knowledge, and culture behind them. But you're thinking just because of my skin color, you're better at a higher class, and why should I get it versus you without knowing all of that? You are really going to hate your life. Because this channel is for upwardly mobile black women who are single moms, but I know other people watch me as well. But you're really going to get an awakening, and we are more than happy to check you on it. So so it's just like, y'all really need to understand that the tide is changing. Y'all had your time, and you made a lot of people look at you like, Karen, that's what you did. I talked to a lot of Hispanic workers. I have a book on real estate investing. I translated it to Spanish. Guess which one of my books is the bestseller right now? The Spanish version. Because I respect other people. But I'm looking at all these Hispanic contractors, and I'm like, I might be going off on subjects, but still, you need to know this. I've been looking at all these Hispanic contractors, whereas before I used to go to Home Depot and see if we can pick them up. And yeah, they still do that. But now, no. Now he's the contractor. He's not subcontracting to you. If you're lucky, you'll subcontract to them because he has the manpower. And all those men who used to hang out there go directly to him. They take care of him. They give him housing, even if it's 15 people per person. They'll take care of him. They have manpower and good work labor that none of these other white contracting firms have anymore. They can get bigger jobs, better jobs, and deliver on time. They know their stuff. They know their worth. And all these years, the last 30 years, people were treating them, especially these contractors. You had a few treating them respectfully, but the majority treating them like, who are you, and treating them like crap. Well, guess what? Now they're getting all the jobs. Now they're getting all the money. They're buying the houses. They're building the houses in the best neighborhoods in 6 weeks. Like, I've seen it multiple times, right? They're building houses in 6 weeks. They're getting their money. So they're mortgage free. They pay for the materials. They're getting all the jobs. And you had 30 years since I was a kid in which you treated them like they were nothing and less than. And now they're in charge. They're making money. They're taking your money. You're not getting their business. They're getting my business and everyone else. And all these other minorities have been working and doing our hustle, right? The tides have changed. And I know in my lifetime, I'm 41. You guys had 20 to 30 to 40 years to show people what you were about. And I have to say, unfortunately, it wasn't the best. So I'm just saying, you really need to get over that. So any racism I experienced the last 2 times, when I went, it came from actually Moroccan. We thought that who am I to be, talking so casually like it should be them. I should be integrated, not you. Whatever. You need to really get over it because the tide is changing and I am here for it. People have been working very hard to get to where they're at, very hard to be able to walk the way they walk and speak to people the way they speak. And you just assuming because you're a lighter skin color that you're automatically going to be placed or you treated a certain way, it's you need to relax because it's not even going to happen that way. And to tell you the truth, the hierarchy exists. There is Western privilege. When I travel as a Black American person, because I am American, that does give you a socioeconomic status. Like, it just is what it is, right? So you thinking me being Black, will diminish that. No, being American elevates me to a certain status. So it's just funny, people's racism, where they think you should be. It's funny. But yeah, that's it for this video. I know I went off on a tangent, but, as you're traveling the world, you really need to understand all the stuff that's taking place. As a Black woman who's traveling, it's important for me to talk about if I got any pushback. And I have to say, I actually honestly didn't, except for Moroccan men randomly over the weeks, cashiers and whatnot. And I understood exactly where it was coming from. But something else, but we were working hard to make sure that, we're working very hard to make sure we come correct, right? And we can do the things we want. So we'll just have to deal with it. Love you guys. Going to do another video on how I've been teaching my daughter and the apps that I have went through and where I'm at now and how I think they work. I'm more than happy to share that in the next video after I stop being a gas. Is there anything I want to? I'm gonna start like reviewing different items that I like. I bought these like little flashcards and these like fridge bingo. I'll show you, and I'll also review them on how they've been working with Layla because I think she's an excellent text subject. Even if you teach yourself, if you use what kids like, it'll work really well. But I want to go over like what my own language learning tips to get conversational from September to now, so like 8 months, to be able to hold a full 2-hour conversation with someone from Quebec or France. I like to share that, and it's because I learned Spanish that I sort of knew what to do, and I like to share those tips with you. All right, guys, bye guys, have fun.